it is just a huge honor for me. I cannot believe I'm doing this. I'm bringing on Marie Gorczyca, like the island Corsica, for her 5th podcast. And I always teased her that I got 4 sons, and my first podcast producer was Ryan. And I think the only reason she came on the show 4 times is just Ryan just loved you. I mean, my God, you were his favorite podcast. We went out and visited you. I mean, you really, you feel like my sister, where you and I grew up on this show together. I mean, it's really been a long time. But Dr. Marie Gorczyca is a frequent speaker on practice management topics, including marketing, teamwork, treatment coordination, customer service, management systems, and human resource management. She is the author of so many books. It all starts with marketing, Beyond the Morning Huddle, At Your Service, and Take Action. Dr. Gorczyca is a graduate of the Harvard School of Public Health with a master's in public health degree in health management policy. She is a graduate of Wellesley College, Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and Northwestern University Orthodontic Residency Program, where she also received a master's degree in oral biology. Dr. Gorczyca is the orthodontist and owner of Gorczyca Orthodontics, located in Antioch, North Carolina, in San Fran Bay Area. In 2020, she celebrated 30 years in the orthodontic profession. Today, she will be speaking about her 4th book, Takes Action, Treatment Coordination for a Successful Dental Practice. And by the way, I have the Dental Town magazine and website and the Ortho Town magazine and website. Every single orthodontist I've ever got to know just thinks yours truly is the smartest person in orthodontics. She's a complete brainiac. I mean, how many people do you know have written 4 books? But Marie, thank you for coming back on the show for the 5th time. How are you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for having me back, Howard. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, you got to make a shout out to Ryan. He's your man.
Oh, yes. And hello, Ryan. Congratulations on the babies. Is it 2 babies now?
He just had his first one, little Jasper.
Oh.
So he's just so happy. That's going to be
I'm very happy for him.
Oh,
but Howard,
my gosh.
I have to tell you, I write the books that I always wished I had had. And celebrating 30 years in the profession, it's been 30 years of lifelong learning. And we all have a lot to learn, especially when it comes to dental practice management. And I feel the more educated we can be in that area, the more stress-free our lives are going to be, and the more successful we're going to be. And this latest book, Take Action, Treatment Coordination for Successful Dental Practice, I think to sum it up, Howard, is to address one of your phrases, one of your favorite phrases, which I quoted in the book, get your house in order. And this book really details step by step how to get your dental house, your dental practice in order. Because treatment coordination is the engine which runs your practice. It is the engine, a financial engine of success. And dentists and orthodontists and all specialists, we have to get it right.
Well, and it's more important than ever because, you know, when I started in 87, I was just competing with, you know, a couple of homies across the street. And now you're competing with operations that have 1,000 locations. And then you in particular, you're competing with people that want to bypass you and take orthodontics straight to the individual. So it's kind of like, you know how they had too big to fail? It's kind of almost too small, and you will fail. If you don't wear a lot of hats and step up your game, the competition's rising, and you really have to rise to the occasion, unlike you did in the 80s.
Right. There's not as much leeway for inefficiency. And so you've got to be on top of your management systems, know your reports, have a solid team, have your team be accountable, and keep your cash flow flowing. So the new book, Treatment Coordination, is divided into 3 sections. The first section I call engagement, which is patient engagement, getting the patient to your office and going through the initial exam process. The second area is conversion, how do we stay in communication and start the patients who perhaps don't say yes the day of the exam? And then the last area is delivery. And the delivery section is really devoted to financial systems, because production without collections is charity. And you can start a million cases, but if you are not aware of your costs, or you are not collecting payment accurately, then you're going to have difficulties in that area as well. So shall we start with engagement?
Well, you know what? You are, I have those three sections. I mean, engagement, conversion, delivery. My gosh, this could almost be a lecture style. It could almost be an interview style. You've been on 5 times. I don't know how, what would work best for you, but I like the first part of the engagement, which is a very common question on the phone system. Weave. What are your thoughts on weave? Do you just want to do section 1, then we'll talk, or section 2?
Let's just go through, and I will share a few tips with the listeners of what I've learned and what I've improved in my own office, and they can see what they think of the ideas. Okay. So the first part of engagement is the initial contact of how does the patient find your office, and most likely, when they schedule an appointment, they are going to call your office. That's the most common means. So number 1, you have got to make sure your phone systems are working properly. Now, I'm in Northern California, and we have up here, we have Pac Bell, we have Verizon. And there was a time about 6 years ago where I had a lot of problems with my landlines. The landlines would go down. So one thing I do in the morning is I have about a 35-minute commute. I call my office every morning on the way to work, and just chat with my front office financial coordinator. And one thing I'm doing is just checking that my phone is working properly. And what I did years ago is I switched to Weave, which is internet wireless. It's in the cloud. And ever since I switched to Weave, I've never had a problem with my phone going down. It has worked out really, really well. So
now to be clear, Weave is an internet phone, right? It's over a voice.
That's
is
correct.
It voice?
Yeah, it's in the
over
cloud.
internet protocol.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is estimated that within the next 5 years, probably all phone systems will go to internet wireless.
In 5 years.
And be in the cloud. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Weave, for orthodontists, it is integrated with Dolphin, which is a very good feature. I use in my practice Ortho2 Edge. And presently it is not integrated, but nonetheless, I still love it, and I still think it's a great phone system.
So Dolphin is the
software.
Pano. Is that the Pano machine, or the Dolphin's the software?
Well, Dolphin started out as imaging,
right?
But then they also added their own practice management software.
And it's called Dolphin's. It's called what?
Dolphin practice management.
Oh, I thought you called it something else.
Well, there's Dolphin is a practice management system. Ortho2 Edge, that's another practice management system. And I've been with Ortho2 since 1996. I do have Dolphin imaging in my practice. I love it. I've been using that also since 1996.
So they came into business back in the day because they were the first Pano-Ceph that automatically traced it all, so you could do a new patient consultation Pano-Ceph.
Yes.
And was that
the digital imaging, the photos, and yeah, it's just a great software.
Yeah, was that a revolution when they came out, where you could take the Pano-Ceph with the automatic tracing at one time?
Oh, it's just fantastic. I mean, it revolutionized the time that orthodontists spent not having to trace the lateral cephs by hand.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic. So the next thing I want to talk about is your team. You know, your team is everything. And in the book, I talk about that each team member has to have three things to be a good team member. They have to be ready, willing, and able. And Gino Wickman, who wrote the foreword to the book, who I have so much respect for, he calls this the team has to get it, want it, and do it. Now, Patrick Lencioni, who is one of the great teamwork authors out there, who wrote many famous books, I like what he has to say, because he says a team member has to be hungry, humble, and smart. And I like the fact that he uses the word smart, because we are asking our team members to do some very sophisticated things in our office. You know, when you imagine someone digitizing a ceph or running the payroll or closing out the month, I mean, these are all pretty sophisticated things we're asking our team members to do. And they have to do it without error. They have to do it accurately. So we do need smart people to run our systems in our practice. And one of the things I learned from one of your podcasts, Howard, the one you did with Jeff Palmer on the Case Acceptance Academy, one of the things that impressed me about what he said is that when he's called into an office to train a treatment coordinator or to go over case conversion with whoever the team member is helping the doctor, that he finds that 50% of the time the person is not trainable. And he assesses this to, they don't have the personality to do sales. And there is a certain personality that goes into sales. I like to call it the winner's instinct. Jeff Palmer calls it the killer instinct, but it is an assertive personality of organization, of persistence, of being a little bit thick-skinned, and then also being likable and having empathy for your patients and being resourceful, that you're able to remove barriers to entry to them starting the treatment. And hopefully they start today, and hopefully they do it now. So from what I've learned in my 30 years, I think if I were to interview someone new for the treatment coordination position, I would probably, for the working interview, put them in the treatment room and ask them to make 40 phone calls and see how many new patient exams they can schedule. I think that would be my next working interview, is just give them a list, say, I'm going to give you 1 hour, see how many exams you can schedule into records, and I'll see you in an hour. And I would hire the most talented person who has that skill.
Nice. That is a great idea. Talk about a working order. When I see consultants coming in and giving people scripts, I'm sitting there thinking, and you say half the people in there aren't even qualified. I mean, some people are just naturally love people. I want to say one other thing about HR. Sometimes I'll go in there, and a dentist has had the same office for 20 years in a small town, and none of his staff has been there 3 years. I mean, at that point, would you say, Doc, you're horrible at this? Anybody. I mean, if we just went to Walmart and just grabbed any cashier, they're going to do better than you. Is there a point where you don't recommend that dentists are trying to increase their skills and you say, you're horrible at this, we need to give this job to someone else?
Well, what has just happened? I don't know. I wouldn't say anyone is horrible. I don't know if you're aware of this, Howard, but the average employee now in the United States of America stays at a job for 3 years. That is the average employee in the United States of America. So I think if you've had the same staff for 30 years, that might be wonderful. Or it might be that you have no standards also, that you've never asked them to do anything. Some people will love what they do and they'll rise to the occasion of the job, and some people won't. Some people will stagnate, some people will grow. So I look at it as how you mention a football team, that you have some superstars, but you're constantly refreshing the rookies. You know, the rookies might not even want to stay in dentistry, because dentistry is work. There's no room for rest. You know, people are 100% accountable. You're working with a small team, and everybody's accountable for their work. And attendance is a major thing. You know, we talked about in the HR podcasts that the Ritz-Carlton, for the 90-day period, 20% of the new hires don't make it 90 days. And the number one reason is attendance. So I think it's a mixture of both. You know, you want to have your long-term employees, like Jolene, who I've had for 23 years, but then, you know, you've got some fresh blood in there that's eager, hungry, and smart. You know, they're running the engine.
And then another problem when they have legacy staff like that is they give them a raise every time the earth goes around the sun. It's based on astrology. And then they go to sell their practice and they're like, dude, your labor's 32%. It's hard to sell a practice with labor in the 30s. And so legacy staff and the big DSOs, just because of that, the largest extent, they say, we prefer to do de novos, because if we go by Anne Marie's office and everyone's been there 30 years and their labor is 35%, if we adjust their income so that the labor is at 25%, they're never going to forgive us. They're never going to like us. It's just easier to start from new with the de novo than try to get a bunch of overpaid legacy staff to adjust their pay down or their production up. So there's trade-offs with everything.
Right. And your staff costs can even be 20% or 21%. I mean, if you hire someone talented, they can have a high salary and truly do the work of 3 mediocre staff. So the people that are excellent, you do want to hang on to them however you can, because they are very, very difficult to replace. So moving on to the exam, one thing I would recommend for the doctors, and I wrote about this in the book, and I mentioned that I had met with Livy Matthews in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, you remember Livy, she had been a treatment coordinator for 15 years for a general dentist who she told me could sell ice cubes to an Eskimo. And I had lunch with Livy, and at that time I was going over the new patient experience because I was writing the customer service book. And I was asking Livy, I said, what do you think of this and what I'm telling the readers? And she said, Anne Marie, I would tell you one other thing that I think is really important. At the end of the new patient exam, as the doctor, take the lead, turn to your treatment coordinator and say, Gwen, I recommend we schedule Sally Sue for tomorrow at 2 p.m. to get started, and then leave the room. Now, go into the new exam knowing your next available opening and try to fill the next opening. And I took Livy's advice. I came back to my practice in Antioch, California. And if my treatment conversion rate didn't jump from doing that, I tell you honestly, like the next 25 patients in a row all got started just because of that one simple step. That I took the lead. I didn't leave it up to the treatment coordinator to ask the 3 magic words, let's get started. I just said, let's get started, and let's schedule you for today at 1:30, whatever the time might be. So that's a big factor in treatment coordination. Make the appointment. Never leave the exam without making the appointment. Now, you are going to get excuses. And I list in my book the 7 excuses which patients might give. And they might not start immediately because they say, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, it's not convenient, I have to think about it, have to talk it over. Or they might even say going for more opinions, or I changed my mind. Those are the 7 excuses. When you get an excuse, ask the next question. What will you be thinking about? If they have to think about it, what will you be thinking about? Is it the price or is it the procedure? The most likely answer is going to be, it's the price. And then you might ask, well, is it the overall price, or is it the down payment, or is it the monthly payment? And then they might answer it's the down payment. And then you could say, well, our minimum down payment is, you give them the minimum down payment, or you might say, you might want to consider third-party financing, like Care Credit. With Care Credit, there's no down payment, and your monthly payments can be low. You can even spread them out over 5 years. And you may get an immediate yes when you follow up with the next question.
That is nice. By the way, love Livy. I mean, and what I really love about Livy is I didn't understand this when I started lecturing, but a lot of people in that big Midwest of like Kansas, you know, the whole Midwest, they always are suspect. Why are all the experts from Beverly Hills and Manhattan? And when you show up and you say, oh, well, here's Livy, and she's from Charlotte, North Carolina, they kind of more likely to think, well, if she can do that in Charlotte, North Carolina, I should be able to do that in St. Joe, Missouri. You know what I mean?
And you can do it, and you can do it anywhere.
It's now, like why I don't listen to Bill Dorfman, because he's just too damn gorgeous, and he's in Beverly Hills. And I'm like, he just doesn't really relate to a short, fat, bald guy. You know what I mean? And but anyway.
Well, one new thing, Howard, that we implemented in the past year is we got a new program called Simple Consult. And what it is, it's a payment slider that comes on a iPad. And not only is the patient able to choose their down payment, choose their monthly payment, but you can also, at the press of a button, print out the contract immediately that day. You can email it home. You can email the slider home to dad if dad wants to look at it. And then the program also has a text messaging email follow-up. So it has a 2-day follow-up, a 2-week follow-up, and then every monthly follow-up until the patient says yes or no. So in addition to your face-to-face and phone call follow-up or postcard follow-up, you can also have that as a backup to your follow-up system for new patient exams. So it's one new software I really can't live without. And it also has virtual consults on the website. So I have to say, during the lockdown of COVID, I actually did do my first virtual consult and ended up starting my first new patient from a virtual exam, who came in and started orthodontic treatment.
It's not a fad, this teledentistry and telemedicine. I mean, what I love the most is my 82-year-old mother. Now, instead of me worrying about her drive halfway across to Wichita on the roads, which I remind you, the roads kill 36,000 people a year, and she's sitting there on her iPad talking to her doctor, and that's just really cool. And you know, like, trends that were already going that way, like working from home, like when we when this thing broke out, well, I already had 20% of Dentaltown working for home for years because Lori led that way. And she's, well, I mean, we had Howard Goldstein's in Philadelphia. You know, I mean, I got 5 people that aren't even in the state, so obviously going to work from home. But a lot of people were not trending that way, like school online. You know, they had to start from scratch, and it's been a disaster. And I hope the government doesn't say, oh, well, scrap all that and we're moving them all back into the brick building, because I've been thinking for years, well, if teacher class size is so high, why don't you have half the students come Monday and Wednesday and half come Tuesday and Thursday and make it more a balanced approach? It's kind of why, same thing with the environmentalism and getting off fossil fuels. Well, if you're already at 25% nuclear, you could scale that to 100% in 4 years. But if you're less than 1% solar paneled and air, you can't scale 1% solar and air to 100%, but you can scale nuclear. It's already a quarter. So this telemedicine, this telehealth, it changes everything. And you know what? When we're at Today's Dental and we're making a new patient exam, it's so much nicer to see the person than talking on a landline. It's so nice to be able to see you and you know, like online reviews. I always said about online reviews. If you read this exact online review and it was from me or one of my 5 different sisters, that it would mean 6 different things to you by just looking at the person and how they did that review. But these are things that aren't going to go away after the pandemic.
Right. Well, I heard an interesting discussion about online education. My son did some great things online. He took a class at Columbia University this summer that he never would have done if we hadn't been in lockdown. He took a class at Bucknell University. And look at Peloton with the treadmill and the bikes, with the great coaches that they have. So there are a lot of great things you can do online. You can get the world's expert online. And you could choose the best teachers in the whole country to teach the kids. You know, there's a potential there that I'm sure will grow in the future and be tapped into. Now, getting back to your question about the office that has everyone who's never left in 30 years. In my book, I talk about a principle called the Peter Principle. Did you ever hear of that before, Howard?
Oh, yeah. He does good, so you give him a promotion. He does good, so you give him another promotion. And you keep promoting him until he fails, and you fire him.
Okay, well, I've spoken to a lot of management consultants, and they say that the Peter Principle is rampant in dentistry. Because what happens is we hire entry-level people, and they're great. They're great. They're great dental assistants, and they're great. Then a job with more responsibility opens up, and because we know them, we trust them, we want to develop our team members, we give them the opportunity to advance. And we hire a new entry-level person because that's the easiest thing to do. So they go to a new job, maybe as records coordinator, and it's a new skill set because now they're independent. You know, before they were on the schedule, kind of being told what to do. They didn't have to really be too self-motivated, but now they have to be self-motivated to digitize the records or get the records printed out, whatever. And they do okay at that. Okay, but then another job opens up and it's at the front desk. Maybe it's a management job, or maybe it's the treatment coordinator job. Now, these are incredibly important jobs, and we really should have a search for these jobs. But what happens is your team might not want a new person to come in at a level higher than them. It might be hard to find someone at that level, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. So you promote the person again. And now they're at a very, very important job, very high job. And maybe they can't do it, or maybe they just don't even want to do it. And then you have a problem. And it's hard to go backwards. It's hard to go back down, and it's in every industry. I was thinking last night as I was thinking of what I would say on the podcast, I was thinking of my own brother-in-law, who is a electrical engineer, computer scientist. And at the urging of my dear sister, he decided he'd go get an MBA, and he went to MIT for computer science and electrical engineering. So then he went to Sloan School of Business Management to get his MBA. And then he was promoted to a management position where he was managing people. And he absolutely did not like it. And he ended up telling his company, you know what, I want to stay in research and development. I don't want to be management. And it's the same in our dental offices. Now, I think one of the reasons that Jolene is with me 23 years is that she is the back office chairside clinical coordinator. And she loves that job. And every time a front office desk job opened up or treatment coordinator job opened up, I offered it to her, but she said, no, I'm just happy where I am. I don't want to go do that job. So that is where a little bit of the turnover happens. People also burn out. They get tired and they burn out. An orthodontic office is a busy place. They might decide they want to go to a quieter office or less days a week or spend more time with their kids. I mean, I had one front office person who was fantastic. She was with me 7 years, and her kids got into middle school and high school. And she told me, I want the summers off. So she went to work at the local high school. So, things change, and you change as things change in the office. But keep that Peter principle in mind, because you may find yourself in a position where someone can't handle the task that you're asking them to do.
It actually happened to me in dental school, and it was the worst thing that ever happened. Back in the day, I went to dental school 83 to 87, and UPS had this evening job where when the trucks came back, you just unloaded the truck. And it was just bust, but hardest work ever. It was a 3-hour shift, and you had to unload a truck for an hour and a half, 10-minute break, another one. And it was the greatest workout. You were soaking wet, and dentals, and it was the biggest money. I mean, it's like $15 an hour way back when all the other jobs were, $2 or $3. And then they promoted me to, instead of unloading the truck for $15 an hour, they bumped me to $20 to load the truck. Well, now you have to memorize 20 zip codes, and you have to look at every zip code, and they bait you with bad ones, and if you strike 3 and you're out because they don't want packages to go to the wrong place. So it went from me being my workout was UPS, and I had done dentistry all day and patients, and I just wanted a mindless workout, and I was the best one unloading the truck, and then I was the most miserable one loading the truck, and I kept begging to go back, and they said to me, well, UPS, you can't go back. So since you've been promoted from unloading to loading, you can't go back. And I thought, well, that's the dumbest rule in the world. 8 billion people and no one can go backwards? I mean, that's crazy. But it ruined the job, and I eventually quit just because I needed to unwind. I didn't need to go freak out on, reading 1,000 zip codes an hour. I mean, it was just went from the best job to the worst job.
Yeah. So that happens, and people change. You might hire a young, energetic assistant with no cares in the world, living with her parents. And then 15 years later, she's got 4 kids, and she's got a husband, and she's got commitments, and she just can't devote the same amount of time and energy to the job. So you have to keep that in mind also. There's one other thing I want to mention, and that is advocacy of your services and charging for your services. You had a very good podcast. I don't remember who it was with, but it was about charging for your services. And dentists give a lot away for free, and so do orthodontists. And one thing I did in my office was I put together an invoice sheet of all the little things we do in our office that we just don't even realize it, like a retainer check patient comes in 5 years later, or a bonded lingual wire retainer breaks and you have to fix it, or I don't know, someone loses a headgear and you have to get another one. And I recommend that every dentist and every orthodontist do that, because otherwise you're giving a lot of things away for free. I really thought about this once when I was bonding a bonded lingual wire, and I looked at the tube of adhesive, and I can only use this one adhesive that comes from Germany, and it has a little metal tip that's curved just right. And I look at that little tube and it's $120 a tube. And I said to myself, wow, I have got to charge for these repairs of these bonded linguals because, you know, cost of goods sold, I don't want to be losing money on these procedures. So the year I put that sheet together and started charging for all these little things that aren't so little, the miscellaneous charges actually added up to $80,000 for the year. So dentists might be losing a lot of money, and orthodontists also just not charging for things that perhaps they should, so that they're not losing money on the procedures that they're doing.
It's solid advice. They do it all the time. They just do it all the time.
So Howard, in the book, I do mention the 6 factors of persuasion, which is important in sales. And I just want to mention them quickly. And those are reciprocity, to give your patient some gift, commitment, your commitment to take great care of them, social proof, who are your patients? Do you have their pictures on the walls? Are you treating their family members? Whatever. Scarcity, that your appointments are limited. You're an authority and you're an expert at what you do. And then the last thing is likability. And these are 6 things that dentists and orthodontists, all of us, can work on in an effort to try to do the best job we can at the initial exam.
You'll never guess who my teacher was at ASU MBA school.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Around the corner. You know who it is?
Yes.
Robert Cianaldi.
Yeah, no, he's a phenomenal author and a great expert on sales.
The funniest thing in the world is when you talk to him, he does it to you as you do it. Like you'll be saying something, and he'll say, "Howard, I like what you just did. What you just did is," and then he'll explain the technique I'm using. I'm like, you can't talk to the professor who wrote the book of persuasion, but I need to get him on the show. He is just
that would be great. Howard, I want to go over one system that is so important, and it really is the foundation of treatment coordination. After you get your same-day starts, hopefully your patient says yes to treatment that day, and hopefully you make it a goal that your patient schedules that day to start treatment. But if they don't, the next step is the follow-up. And I highly recommend you call within 2 days. Okay. When you call within 2 days, that is what I call a hot call. The patient still wants the treatment and they haven't gone anywhere else. And so you call and you ask them, are you ready to start treatment? And see what they have to say and work out the arrangements with them. Those patients go on the pending list. The patients, you probably have a list in your dental office, patients with treatment plans who did not yet accept treatment. And that list needs to be called every single month. Now, one of the things I discovered during the last 4 years of writing this book is when I pulled up my own pending list, I had quite a few names on there. And I decided I'm just going to call these patients myself. So I started calling the list, and no matter how long ago the patient came for the exam, I started a gentleman in Invisalign. He was the father of one of my patients. He came for his exam 9 years ago. And I started him in Invisalign, and I said to him, "What took you so long?" And he said, "No one ever called me." And when I took his initial records and I sent his general dentist the records, his general dentist called me and said, "Gee, thanks for getting him in. Thanks for sending me the records. We haven't seen him in 4 years." Now, this gentleman was a physician, so money was no problem for him. It was the time and the attention to his dental care that was the problem. So patients need help. They are asking you, "Please help me. Please lead me." You can't help anyone that you don't reach out to. So calling is very, very important. I had another patient start treatment. She came for her exam 5 years ago. And she started her orthodontic treatment. And after I put her braces on, she said, "Dr. Gorczyca, thank you for not giving up on me." So persistence is really important in the treatment coordination process, to never, ever give up. Never give up on a patient until you get a yes or a no answer. Now, another interesting thing that occurred was I called one mother and I asked, "Hi, Mrs. Jones, this is Dr. Gorczyca calling. I'm calling to ask, are you ready to get Sally started with her orthodontic treatment?" The mother said to me, "Oh, yes, we are ready to get started." And then she said to me, "I know, Dr. Gorczyca, that you've called me 4 times, okay? Well, I had actually called that patient 14 times over a year and 2 months. So the reason I'm telling this story is your perception of what your patient hears versus their perception is completely different. You know, and treatment coordinators, the pushback of treatment coordinators is, "I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to bug them. They're going to call." That's not true. The patient in general is never going to call back. You need to call them. And there's a big difference between following up and following through. Following through is until you get a yes or a no answer. Following up is you call once or twice, but you don't get to the answer. So my take-home message from the whole book is never, ever give up on a new patient. Help them get started in your office.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, the other reports you need to call are the missed exams. Some patients miss their exam. Call them right back. I would call them the day that they're running late. I would call them within 7 minutes. Some of them will still show up that day. The other 50% will schedule that day that they missed their exam. They just plain forgot, or they got delayed or whatever. And then most of the other ones will also reschedule, no matter how long it's been. So that missed exam list should also be called every month. In orthodontics, we have growth and observation patients that did phase 1 or phase 2, or maybe they're not ready yet. Those patients all need to be scheduled. So I would call that list patients missing exams or without scheduled exams. And then you want to also call active patients who don't have their next appointment.
Nice, nice, nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're on a roll.
So let's
You're on a roll because
now,
you're so organized.
We've talked about conversion. Let's talk about delivery, because delivery is 50% of the game. You want to collect for the services that you provide. So your accounts receivable are really important. And that's another thing you've really got to be on top of that. You've got to send the invoices out. You've got to follow up at least every 5 at least every week or every 10 days. One thing I use in my office, I've been using Vanco electronic fund transfers since 2002. And I'm very, very happy with that service. When someone signs up for orthodontic treatment, the contract just goes right into the Vanco system, and the money is directly wired either out of their banking account, checking account, or by credit card. And that really is a fantastic thing that you can do for your patients.
Okay, can I stop you right there?
Yes.
I know what my homies are thinking. They're thinking, okay, Vanco, you're in San Francisco, they're in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Does that mean that the big name brands like Care Credit wasn't doing it for you?
Well, Care Credit is a third-party financing company. So what Care Credit does is, I love Care Credit. I use it exclusively for Invisalign patients. Care Credit pays you in full at the start of treatment minus a processing fee, which is a few $100s, okay? The patient then pays Care Credit. So you're off the hook. If you use Care Credit for every single patient, you're off the hook with collections. The only downside is they take a big chunk. You know, if you're going to completely outsource your collections, you're talking 9%, 10%, which is a lot of money for an orthodontic office. With Vanco, you put the contract into the computer for $5 per case, and that's it. So there's a big difference between $5 and 10%.
So it's kind of like the stocks. They all want to make it a commission per trade, and then eventually they start doing commission-free trading. And now the stock trading industry is dead because there's so many people who will give that away as a service. So these people are just doing, it doesn't matter if you buy one share of stock or 100, it's just a fee per trade. And that's what you're saying that Vanco's doing. It's just one fee per transaction.
Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you one way dentists can save a lot of money right now with their financial systems. Become PCI compliant. Have you done that, Howard, in your office?
PCI compliant.
Okay. What that is your bank charges a PCI compliance fee for credit card transactions. It's an insurance against fraud. And if you take the PCI compliance test online, you will lower your banking fees by probably $200 a month or more. So that's one way that you can save money immediately. You have to reach certain regulations in your processing of payments, have certain secured systems, but you can save a lot of money by that. The other thing I would recommend for dental offices to save money is do not accept virtual credit cards from insurance companies. You may receive a notice either by mail or by fax that your insurance company wants you to process a payment by virtual credit card. That is, they say, put in this number and process the payment on your credit card machine. That is a kickback for the insurance company, that they are actually taking 5% of your payment for themselves with the virtual credit card. I was in my dental office last week and I said to my dentist, his wife works at the front desk, by the way, don't accept virtual credit cards from your insurance company. And his wife at the front desk, who's his financial coordinator, said, oh, Dr. Gorczyca, you know, I just put 5 of those in just this morning. I said, well, you do realize you're losing like 5% per payment by just call the insurance company and say, either send me a hard copy check or wire me the money directly into my bank account. But do not accept the virtual credit card. You do not have to accept it.
Wow. And this is why the dentist just wears too many hats. I mean, there's so many things to stay up on.
Yeah, and I think that the financial services are really big. Another thing I did recently was I switched out of my small town bank, which I had been with since 1996, to Wells Fargo Small Business. And that came at the urging of my accountant, Basim Michael, who was a new accountant for me in the last few years. And he insisted that I switch to Wells Fargo Small Business. He also put me on HubDoc, which, you know, at the end of the month, you get all your reports ready for the accountant, you know, all your credit card payments and all of that. With HubDoc, your accountant can go right into the computer system. You can link up all your banking services, all your credit cards, and you don't have to mail him anything. He can just get it all electronically in one spot. So that's another real time saver for.
Yeah, he's got 43 posts on Dental Town, Basim does, and it's like I love his website, Only for Dentists. That is, I love that website. But yeah, that is a great advice from him.
Yeah, well, the first bit of advice he told me was switch banks because you have no fraud protection at your old bank. And the second piece of advice he gave me was get your own mail. Dr. Gorczyca, every day, get your own mail. Take the key, get your own mail, open all the mail yourself. Now, I had assigned that to my front desk for years, okay? I have to tell you, Howard, when I started getting my own mail, I found so many things that I was really surprised by. I found some services I was still paying for that had been discontinued. I found some invoices that actually weren't even for my office. They were for the office next door. I found invoices that had mistakes in the billing. Let me give you an example. My retainer bill, every month, you know, I know pretty much what my retainer bill is going to be per month. And one month I open the bill and I say to myself, wow, that's kind of a high bill this month. I wonder what happened. So I look at the invoice and it says retainer $70, retainer $70, retainer $70, retainer $70, retainer $700. I said, what is this? The lab had mistakenly put in $700 instead of $70. Now, what if I had just paid that bill? What if I hadn't looked at the invoice and said, what's up with this, right? So invoices have mistakes. So I do recommend that doctors look at all their invoices, give the invoices to their financial coordinator at the front desk or their bookkeeper. And I like what Mike Michalowicz wrote in his book, Profit First. I think for financial advice, that's a really, really good book. But one of the things he wrote was pay your bills twice a month. And I really like that. In our office, we tend to have our payroll is on the 2nd and the 16th. And it's not a bad idea in your team handbook to have a payroll range of about 5 days, because your pay date of the 2nd or the 16th, that could fall on a holiday, it could fall on a weekend, it could fall during vacation. So sometimes, you know, it might be a day or two later. So it's good to have that in your employee handbook. Most fixed costs are done by credit card payment. They automatic payment every month. For example, your computer software, your internet services, maybe you have public storage, that kind of thing. If you're going to pay by credit card, the credit card from the bank is much better than going with, say, a Visa Mileage Plus credit card that has a really, really high interest rate. And then the variable costs are usually paid on the 10th and the 25th, 2 days a month. And if you get into that rhythm, you really have a good feel for cash flow.
Nice. So I'm going to go back to the Basim.
Yes.
Basim told you to get your own mail and switch to
Wells Fargo Small Business.
Wells Fargo Small Business. But there was another thing you said. What was the third thing?
Well, the HubDoc.
The HubDoc. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And what is that? www.hubdoc.com?
Yes. That's what he uses to centralize all of your reports via internet in one place. And it will save your front desk a lot of time, because in the old days, we would mail all of our statements, all of our credit card bills and things like that to the accountant so that they could itemize the payments. But now he can just pull that up online and see it all online when you give him access to your accounts.
Wow, that's interesting. And do you like it?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
So it's more user friendly than Dropbox.
Well, I don't know about Dropbox. Well,
sending a big file.
You don't have the extra step. You don't have an extra step. It's just automatically there at the accountant's fingertips.
Yeah, my accountant won't let me send him a check because every time he drops it, it bounces. He just wants it digitally.
Well, it makes your life easier.
Yeah. And you got to go all digital.
Yeah. So another topic I just want to mention is your team meeting. Now, I listened to some of our old podcasts yesterday, Howard, and I was kind of struck that in the old days, I said, I have a monthly team meeting that is an hour and a half. And then I went to every other week meeting, 2 meetings a month that were an hour each. Since I've gone with the new system, I do an hourly meeting every week. And I think that the benefit of that in taking action on individual key performance indicators is that you can work on lead measures of how you are doing. You know, when you meet every week and you look at how many new exams do we have, how many starts do we have, what are our collections, what's our production, you can take action that day to influence your results. But if you only meet once a month and all you do is look at the past month and say, how did we do? Then that's a lag measure. That's already, the game's over. There's nothing you can do about it. So I like that system of having a meeting every week. And that really came from Gino Wickman and his book Traction, that he highly recommends. You know, meetings are the moment of truth for accountability. And when you assign certain tasks to each team member and they give their own reports, they present the reports to everyone, they work on it every single week and every single day, and you're going to achieve 10 times as much.
That is great. So are you doing a lot of them on Zoom or all in person?
No, all in person. All in person. Yeah.
Okay.
And we do ours on Thursday from 12 to 1. No eating. Then we take lunch after that. And I think that that's very productive. At the end of the meeting, I have everyone score the meeting. How did we do? How was this meeting on a scale of 1 to 10? And if the meeting doesn't start on time or it doesn't end on time, you're going to get a lower score. But we're shooting for a level 10 meeting, that all of our meetings are productive and good, and everybody's engaged, everyone's presenting, and everyone's working on their individual projects.
Nice.
Another thing I would recommend for dentists and orthodontists is to check their bank account, their checking account every day. Now, the checking account is not the same as QuickBooks, right? QuickBooks is what your check system is telling you, but your checking account, seeing it from the bank, you are checking your day sheet. You're checking that the money actually made it into the bank. And that's another important thing, is to check your day sheet every night. You know, what's on your day sheet? What was the production? What was the collections? Is there any cash? If there's any cash, the doctor I take the cash to the bank. And did you have any new patient exams?
And I would say, when I was little and opened up my practice, about the only way you could steal money from me was you had to go in my office and get a check and sign it and do that. And I did have one assistant do that. A check never came back and cleared it. And so finally I called my bank, and she said, well, actually, when you cash a check, every single time we take a picture. So I'll just run over and show you a picture of the girl who cashed the check for $600, and it was my dental assistant. And I went and me and the banker, Darlene Winger, went over and showed it to her, and she just busted out crying and ran out of the room. But now I hear there are so many ways to embezzle. I mean, you know, people come in, pay their credit card. I mean, it is amazing how sophisticated it is. So you got to stay on top of this fintech financial embezzlement more than ever. What was that song? 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover? There's 50 ways to lose your money electronically.
Yeah. Well, I heard one time, and only one time, I had $100 missing. I deposited the bag at Wells Fargo. It had the amount written on the bag. I put the bag in the drop box. And I got a call, and they said, you know, your deposit said $1,800, but there was only $1,700 in the bag. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, if you get cash and people are paying $100 bills, you really should have the first person count the cash, and the second person at your front desk also counts the cash, and they sign the back of the envelope. Both of them sign the back of the envelope. So I just had it happen once to me, but once is enough. So I called my front desk. I said, oh, I just got a call from the bank that $100 was missing. And, you know, my front desk person was so upset. But her response was, well, maybe the bank made a mistake. Maybe like $200 bills stuck together or something. Well, no. That never happens. And let me tell you why. In the bank, in Wells Fargo, the money goes into a room. In the room, there are two people sitting in the room. There are cameras in the ceiling watching the people open the bags, okay? One person opens the bag, they count the cash. If the cash is low, the second person counts the cash, and they have it all on videotape. So banks don't make mistakes, but your office could make a mistake. You know, they could lose, I don't know, drop the dollar. Who knows what happened. And here's one other tip for the dentist. Be very careful who you get your credit card machine from. Make sure you get your credit card machine from the bank. Do not get the credit card machine from an independent company, because there are a lot of fraudsters out there trying to get your bank information by telling you that they will give you a less expensive credit card machine and do less expensive credit card processing. And you're better off paying a little bit more and having the fraud protection of your bank.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
So, Howard, we're approaching 2021, and this is the time of year for offices probably to have their annual planning meeting for the new year. Mine is next Tuesday morning. That's my last day in the office for the whole year. And it is certainly a wonderful idea to have an annual planning session to brainstorm about your success, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and what you're going to focus on in the coming year. And that's something that the dentist can plan right now. And if they don't do it in December, they can do it in January. But we do that every year, and I think it's really a fantastic thing to do for the office to keep everyone engaged and keep everybody motivated.
Nice. You're on a roll, man. You're always so organized. This is why you're back on the 5th time.
Well, there are other ways that you can save money in your office, as long as we're on the money topic. Inventory. Clean out your closets, right? Use everything you have. Clean out your closets, use everything you have. That's one thing that Mike Michalowicz talks about in his book is order the small plates. Don't order the big plates. So let me give you an example that's in the book. Costco. There's a problem with Costco, and there's a problem with your front desk ordering from Costco. The problem is that Costco will only deliver if you order $50 of something. So what happens? Your front desk runs out of paper clips. And instead of just going down to Office Max and buying a package of paper clips for $1.99, they order $50 of paper clips. So you have enough to last you till the end of your days. That might not be the best decision for you, you know. So in general, the best companies, they have a very low shelf life on their products. You know, if you order for just the next 2 weeks or just the next month, that's going to really keep your inventory costs down. Now, I know the reps come in and they try to sell you like, 100 orthodontic cases. If you buy 100 cases, you'll get this much off. But the problem is that you've got a huge bill that you're going to be really paying for a long time. And there's an opportunity cost to that money that you could be using that money in other ways. So, also price check. You always do better if you deal with multiple companies and go for the best price. And when you deal with multiple companies, when you're looking for something, you can tell one company, well, gee, I can get that at this other company for this price. Can you match that? And most of the time, the company will match it, or they'll give you free shipping. So don't be afraid to price check. Now, another place you can save a lot of money, renegotiate your lease. I mentioned in the book, I used George Vail a few years ago to renegotiate my lease after 15 years had been up. He saved me about $125,000 over 7 years. So dentists are in the driver's seat. When you give yourself time and you've got about 2 years to renegotiate, you can renegotiate your lease and get a better price, because your landlord does not want to lose you as a rentor.
And George Vail is an amazing man. What an amazing man.
Yeah,
I mean,
I just recently referred someone to him, and he is a great asset for dentists in the negotiation of their lease. So my final word would be to be successful and to be profitable in treatment coordination. You not only want to start the most cases that you can, do the most work that you can, you want to maximize collections, and you want to minimize spending. And you need to be disciplined in doing that. And I have found the best way to be disciplined is to have the weekly meeting, pull up all the reports, have everyone, front desk person, prints the report for everyone, accounts receivable, insurance aging, treatment coordinator pulls up schedule for next week. Where do we have openings? The back office clinical director pulls up the report. Where are our referrals coming from? Where are our new starts coming from? And you can print up the report, pending patients, will call patients, observation, and missed exams. And you take action by just doing what you need to do to improve those numbers, making the calls, sending the statements out, price checking, everything that you can do to run a successful practice.
Wow, wow, wow. I could listen to you for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm in no hurry to let you go.
This book, for your townies, this book will help them get their house in order. This is everything they need to help them get their house in order. And that will lead to their success, and it will produce low stress in the office. It will give you a happy team, and you'll enjoy your practice.
And I want to point out that the name of the book is Take Action, Treatment Coordination for a Successful Dental Practice. It's on Amazon.
Here it is.
And oh my gosh, let me introduce, hold your book up again. I'll introduce you to my book. We should introduce them to each other.
Yeah, and I was very happy to have the foreword written by one of my heroes, Gino Wickman. Right. And also to get an endorsement by another one of my heroes, Jeffrey Gitomer, he calls himself the King of Sales. He's written many good books, the Sales Bible, the Little Yellow Book of Yes Attitude, and he's also a great resource for dentists.
Yeah, and Gino Wickman, who wrote the book Traction.
Yes.
He wrote author of Traction and creator of EOS Worldwide. Just an amazing man. And tell him what you think of Gino.
Well, I think his book, Traction, and I actually found that book once again from you, Howard, when you interviewed Jay Bowman, orthodontist Jay Bowman. Jay Bowman recommended that book, and I bought that book, and I carried it around with me for about 2 years, and I implemented everything in that book in my own office. And it really, really organized us and really got us focused on what's important in getting our engine running as efficiently as possible.
All the dentists are asking me. I know that that you and I, neither of us want to talk about religion, sex, politics, violence. The last thing we want to talk about is stupid COVID-19. But they're all asking, Howard, you have these really smart doctors on your show, and they want to know, Anne Marie, are you going to take the vaccine?
I probably will. My husband is an orthopedic surgeon at UCSF, and the vaccine is going to be voluntary, even for health professionals. But physicians and dentists, we are in group 1. Group 1A, I believe, are the rest home people of high age. Group B are the immunocompromised, highly susceptible. And then physicians, frontline physicians are group C, and I believe dentists are group D. And then the people that work in your office will be group E. So I think personally for me, before I get the vaccine, I would like to have an antibody test done just to see if maybe I've already had COVID. I don't know. I mean, in Northern California, a lot of people were sick over a year and a half ago. And we might have even had COVID back as far back as November 2019. One of the first cases was in Santa Clara, Northern California. And we certainly have a lot of citizens who flew back and forth from Wuhan, China. So many of us might have had it already in Northern California. So I'd like to get the antibody test first to see if I have the antibodies. If I have the antibodies already, I might not need the vaccine.
Yeah, right now, in my backyard, I have two very, very good dentist friends who are sick with COVID, and they work with their wife, live with their wife, sleep with their wife, and both times the wife didn't get it. I'm talking about right now. Didn't get it. Didn't test all that. But what I'm hearing is that I can remember when I got my first flu vaccine, them saying, Howard, this is for influenza. It's not for the common cold. The common cold is 90% rhinovirus, 10% coronavirus, and these tests are so specific they can test you for COVID-19, and they're not positive, whatever, but they may be already immune to coronaviruses from catching a common cold over the last 50 years. I mean, most people catch a cold at least every other year, and 90% of them were rhino, but 10% were COVID. We can't think anything else. How do you work, sleep, eat, live with a woman and you're sick and dying of COVID-19 and she never ever got it, test positive, nothing, and that's what everyone thinks, that she probably caught a common cold when she was little, and but who knows?
Well,
But the government they have to realize that people are people. It is what they is. I have no problem with this election or anything, because to me it's like half the country wants a cheeseburger and half wants a hamburger. And I've seen 600-pound people be asked by a 16-year-old, did you want cheese on that? And you're thinking, oh, no. And he's like, yeah. And and if the government comes in and starts making you eat a cheeseburger or starts taking your cheese off, it's going to get crazy. And the government does not have any authority to inject something into your body. And if they cross that line,
yeah.
you know what put Canada on the map? Did you know Canada wasn't really even a big thing until the United States declared war with England? And 10% of America said, well, I'm not going to fight the damn British Empire. So that's why if you look at the Canadian population, 90% of the people are just within 100 miles of the U.S. border. They literally walked north until they knew they were over the line. And then as soon as they found 40 acres, that's their home. And I swear to God, if the government says you have to take a vaccine, I'm like, okay, I'm a little old. Yeah. I'm on my way to Canada, because I don't want to see. I know how this is going to go down. So they cannot.
From what I know right now, it is going to be voluntary.
Well, it has to be voluntary forever. I mean, nobody trusts the government. They've been lying, cheating, and stealing for 5,000 years. I mean, all the way back to the Roman Empire. What period of time are you looking at where you say, I really trust those guys? They're really some good people trying to do the right thing. No, they don't have that brand. So, well, I'm just glad that you and your amazing. Oh, by the way, your husband, remember that song, You Never Promised Me a Rose Garden? What was that, Loretta Lynn?
Yeah.
Your husband, Pierre Brandmark's son, is an orthopedic surgeon in San Fran. And I still would have get him. I mean, his dad was the god of dental implantology, and his son works with your husband, right?
Yes. Yeah, they work very closely together. And our Seattle Study Club, Northern California, Antioch Delta Study Club, we actually had Ricard come out and give a talk to us. And it was very interesting what he had to say, that he and his father in the 1990s, as he described it, he said they were brutally attacked.
Oh, yeah.
For coming out with implants. And he said he can remember being in San Francisco, giving a talk in San Francisco, discussing implants and showing implants. And people in the audience were just standing up saying, you are a mutilator of the human body. And
He
isn't
was
it
called a
interesting?
butcher.
Yeah, isn't it interesting now that implants are everywhere? You know, you can get a hip, you can get a knee, you can get an arm, you can get, they're everywhere. They're used for hearing all over the body. And we're, you know, eventually the implants connected to artificial limbs will be hooked up to the central nervous system. Eventually that will happen. And that is what some of these guys are working on now, is to try to figure out how can we hook up these limbs connected to the implant to be moved by the central nervous system, that you think, I want to move my arm, I want to move my artificial arm, and it moves.
That would be so amazing to just
yeah.
drive up to the drive-through window and they just hand me the Big Mac large fried Coke. I don't even have to say anything. But you know why it's sad for me? Because I know two personal dentists who were pioneers. Like I say, when I was in dental school, my instructors used to make fun of the oral surgeons that were placing implants. And back then it was ramus frames and it was subperiosteals. And they would lecture to the class, calling them the butchers of Langerhans and all this stuff like that. Totally disrespectful. Then I knew two dentists who were pioneers, restored probably 50 dental cripples. And then the first case that ended up in front of the board, they took their license away, and both of them ended up losing everything and went out to a trailer park in Apache Junction and just drank themselves to death.
Oh, that's
and
too
it
bad.
was so sad because that was a pioneer. And people, and that's why these lessons have to be told so that the kids in dental kindergarten school aren't going to do this and grow up to crucify their next generation that has a new idea. I tell everybody that, you know, it reminds me of that joke. How did it go? The guy turns 100 years old and his grandson walks up to him and says, Grandpa, what's the secret to living to 100 years old and keeping all your teeth? You haven't lost one tooth in 100 years. And he says, that's because I learned how to keep my mouth shut. And if you don't keep your mouth shut, someone's going to knock out all your teeth. And just, God, think how much better the world would be if people would just mind their own business. And I'm a dental cripple, and I go to you, and you're trying this new thing with titanium. And to think of the pain and suffering that some of the dentists out here in Arizona had to go through with their mental midget state board of dental examiner because they ain't seen that giraffe before. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. But if you could hook me up with him or Gina Weckman, it'd be great. Thank you so much for coming on for the 5th time. Thank you so much for my son, Ryan. I think, I mean, really, Ryan thinks you're the single smartest person ever. He loves you. He always talks about you. And thanks so much for coming on the show the 5th time.
Thank you so much, Howard. It's always a pleasure.
But I want you to break the news here. You have to break the news here. What's the name of your next book?
Okay, I'm not going to give the name out, but I am working on it.
I know you're working on it.
And I have 2 more to go, and then I'll be done.
All right.
So hopefully in the next 4 to 6 years, hopefully we'll have 2 more podcasts, and then we will have discussed every aspect of dental practice management.
All right, Anne-Marie, you're the best ever. Thanks for coming on the show.
Okay, thank you, Howard.